Thanks for joining us this week on the show. I have a little conversation going on today. Just you and me, my friend, especially if you're a people pleaser, if you go along to get along, if you are trying to make the world a better place by helping other people have an easier time at your own expense, this conversation is for you. It's for us. Welcome back.
It's time to flip the script on stress and learn how to thrive today and throughout your days. Join me for inspiration and interviews with folks who are shining their light in the world in the areas of positive mindset, health, and well-being. I'm your host, Susi Vine. Let's get happified.
Welcome back, and thank you for joining me this week on the show for another conversation just between the two of us, dear listener or viewer. I'm digging in this week to something that's been coming up a lot lately for the people I've been talking with and for myself. And so perhaps you've been feeling too a little bit of a struggle going on with the boundaries that we carry and the way we show up for ourselves. My question for you is this: is it easier for you to stand up for the ones that you love and to draw a line in the sand when it comes to being in their corner, standing at their defense? More easy than it is for you to defend your own space and protect your peace? That's what we're going to dig into today. So my question for you is this one. Why is it that it is easier for us to take action, to move more quickly, when it's a matter of defending someone that we love? And why do we hesitate? Why does it feel harder to do the same thing for ourselves? Think of a situation. See if anything comes to mind. Someone that you love, a partner, a sibling, a parent or child who is being treated unfairly, being pressured into something, overloaded with responsibilities, or treated with disrespect. And how do you respond? Typically, immediately, we know that is not okay, and we're willing to take a stand on their behalf. But what about when it's your turn? When something like any of those situations happens to you? Do you tend to come back to a more peacekeeping, amicable response of, it's fine, I can handle it, they really need me, I don't want to disappoint them, it'll just be easier if I do it, I don't want to make things awkward? Today, we're taking a look at that intersection of people-pleasing, of healthy boundaries, self-care, and your authentic self-expression. How learning to hear and to trust our own inner guidance can help us find our voice. And if tuning into your inner wisdom or inner guidance is something you've been looking for support in, I will share some links in the comments or the show notes where you can find other episodes where we've talked about tuning into that inner wisdom in a very loud, very chaotic world that we are living and operating in these days. What I want you to recognize is this: people pleasing isn't necessarily the same thing as kindness. Kindness contains choice. People pleasing often contains some kind of combination of fear, of guilt, of obligation, or anxiety, and often a desire to avoid conflict. So rather than start judging yourself, because that is another default that we easily slip into, why don't I show up differently in relationships? Why do I resent saying yes or this person after I've made a commitment and then feel obligated to follow through? You're not alone. First of all, many people pleasers have been rewarded for these behaviors for years or even decades. They might even come from very early patterns in childhood. Speaking as someone who knows. Maybe you learned that being helpful, agreeable, dependable, accommodating, and easygoing, generous, or simply the responsible one in any relationship brought you approval, acceptance, and appreciation. At work, we're praised for being team players. In families, we're praised for being the one everyone can count on, or simply the one who can lighten the mood and bring some humor to any situation. Eventually, being needed can become tangled up in feeling valued. There can be a nervous system component in people pleasing or in helping situations feel more comfortable. If disagreement, conflict, anger, or disappointing someone feels threatening, appeasing people can become an automatic response. If everyone else is okay with me, then everything is okay. Have you ever found yourself in that situation or running defense along those lines? So, a question to ask yourself is this: am I doing this because I genuinely want to? Or is it because I'm uncomfortable with what might happen if I don't? We have to recognize that every yes has a cost, and not necessarily a bad cost. We make choices, we show up, we serve and support people who are important to us, and issues and matters that deserve our energy and attention. However, we have to recognize that with every yes, we are giving up some time, energy, our attention, perhaps money, sleep, creativity, exercise, family time, opportunities for solitude, for peace and reflection, or rest. When we give, we are borrowing from somewhere else. When we're constantly tracking what everyone else needs, we can be very good at reading other people. And at the same time, as much as that energy is directed outward, we start losing track of those inner signals when can become disconnected from ourselves. So, how do you notice when you've overextended yourself, when you've committed to things that you regret? Do you resent those commitments or the people that you've agreed to show up for? We tend to judge resentment when it comes up in ourselves, thinking, I shouldn't feel this way. I agreed to do it. But we can tune into those feelings as important information. Emotions bring us messages that we have to tune in for. When we try to push down those emotions and power through, those emotions lie in wait. They may become dormant. They might become an energy drain. Certainly, they are waiting for another trigger to snap back with even more reactivity, even higher, heavier, more uncomfortable emotions in different situations that might not warrant the response simply because those emotions have been simmering under the surface. So is your resentment actually carrying important information? Maybe it's saying something about this isn't okay with me. Maybe you agreed to something that you regret that commitment, or otherwise you want to step away from that commitment. Maybe you're giving more than you have available. Maybe that resentment is coming from recognizing that a boundary has been crossed. Instead of judging your emotions, get curious. The more we hold them at bay, the more determined they are at coming back. So engage with them, ask questions, sit with those emotions. Often, instead of resisting them, when we allow them to come up, they naturally move through us in 90 seconds or so. So take that time, allow the emotion to move through you, and ask, what is this feeling trying to tell me? This opportunity to tune in, this presence, this mindfulness, because mindfulness doesn't only equate meditation. Mindfulness is being present to how you're feeling, where you are, and whatever you're doing. Connecting to this is a very important kind of self-care. Self-care isn't all bubble baths and spa days and beautifully created organic meals. Self-care is the way that we show up, the practices that we really lean into to feel nourished, to feel recognized, to feel restored. So sometimes self-care is reflected in what we stop agreeing to. Sometimes it's cultivating the habit of responding rather than reacting when we're in situation and conversation. And it can sound like, I can't take that on right now. That doesn't work for me. I need some time before I can answer. You always deserve that opportunity of time to look at your schedule, to check your resources, to review your commitments and make sure you're not overextending yourself. Anyone worth your time and energy is going to understand the wisdom in that response. I'd prefer something different. Completely valid. No, thank you. Remember, no is a complete sentence. Doesn't have to come with a paragraph of explanation because you feel guilty or you're trying to cushion someone's feelings by being authentic to your own needs. So this is where one of my favorite practices comes in. In moments of stress, one of the most powerful opportunities we can give ourselves is the power of pause. Taking a moment, tuning in, seeing how we're feeling, what we're responding to, what other people are bringing to the situation, and what they might also be reacting to. And take this opportunity to get clear on how you want to move through this situation. Rather than answer before you've checked in with yourself and giving that automatic yes, take a moment, take a pause, and avoid that regret or resentment, wondering, why did you agree to do something? In the pause, with the answers that we just shared, let me think about that. Let me check my schedule. Can I get back to you? This is your window to respond rather than react. So take a moment right now, if you can, where you are, safely without dividing your attention, but call to mind an experience. Think about something that you currently are feeling uncertain about, or in a conversation that is sticking with you. Imagine yourself giving an easy yes in this conversation or exchange. Imagine yourself making the accommodation and giving the other person what you feel they want. Notice what's happening in your body. Do you feel a feeling of expansion or tightness? Do you feel ease, or do you feel a little bit of friction or stickiness? How do you feel energy moving? Do you feel energy rising or lowering, growing or depleting, constricting? How about any excitement that comes up in your body in this exchange? Do you notice constriction, feeling smaller, feeling colder, withdrawing, feeling like you need to protect yourself, heaviness, knotting in the stomach, feeling increased tension, perhaps in your shoulders, certainly around your throat area, in the area of the throat chakra, a sinking feeling in your gut? Think about that situation. Think about responding in the affirmative, making an offer, or responding with a no. And how does the energy move? How does your body respond to a no? Now, initially, that no response might also bring some discomfort, bring a change in your energy. Maybe energy still feels like it shrinks, like it is tampering down, like you're feeling constriction. However, we can't always only go with what brings us the most comfort in the moment. Sometimes discomfort doesn't mean you're making a wrong decision. If you're accustomed to pleasing people, saying no might feel very uncomfortable, even when it's exactly what you logically or through your inner guidance know is right for you. So check in with yourself again. frame this situation differently. If I knew this person wouldn't be angry, disappointed, or hurt, what would I choose? How would I answer in this situation, in this conversation? This helps to start to get you objective and be able to view what you want separately from what you're afraid of. So in that moment, using the power of the pause, we can begin to build the practice of not rushing to an answer that is offered to appease people. And we can begin to check in and start to not only see the emotion that's at the top, we can also recognize the energy that is below things. We can reframe it and take ourselves out of any pressure, guilt, expectation that we are attaching to a situation and ask, if there was no judgment, if there was no guilt, if there was no repercussion, and I gave no answer, how would that feel for me? What would that let me be able to do with my time, my energy, my attention? Often we hear and think about boundaries and we start seeing walls, especially if boundaries have been difficult for you or in relationships, you feel like people take advantage of you. We tend to feel like we have to put up strong defenses to protect ourselves. Unfortunately, the good things are also blocked out by those same walls that we feel are keeping us safe. So, permeability and autonomy are important factors in these. So, we're not putting up walls, we're recognizing and honoring our boundaries. A boundary is not simply saying, you have to stop doing that. A boundary is, if this happens, this is what I'm going to do for myself to maintain my space, my presence, my energy, my well-being. Remember that we can't control other people's behavior and we can't control their reaction to our boundaries. Yes, you might be in situations where people feel disappointed, don't understand these boundaries, especially if this is something you are bringing to old and established relationships. They might feel annoyed. However, someone else's disappointment is not proof that you have done anything wrong. Other people's emotions are not your responsibility. I'm going to say that again for myself. Other people's emotions are not my responsibility. So you can say that now, you can feel how that lands in your body and recognize that while it can be difficult to change patterns, it can be difficult to bring in new habits and new responses until they feel natural. Notice, celebrate your progress, practice the responses that give you the time, the space that you deserve before you make answers. And you will keep growing into this important space of living with boundaries. So as you begin to honor your boundaries and protect your space, we begin to step now into more full self-expression. People-pleasing doesn't only suppress our ability to say no. It can also be stopping the energy, preventing you from also recognizing what you want, what you truly think, what you feel, what you prefer, where you disagree, where you have needs that deserve to be met, and what you believe to be true for you. In this space, as you're honoring those boundaries, this clarity in those points is where it really grows into that authenticity that is so essential. We have to show up in our full vibrance, bringing all of the colors to the canvas. The goal here isn't only becoming better at saying no, it's feeling safer inside yourself when you're saying what is true for you. So we don't have to start by going out there into relationships and trying to instantly install all of the boundaries that you have been wishing were present or addressing all of the areas where you have been feeling frustrated or resentful. Start small and practice. In situations where a simple conversation or question comes up, where would you like to eat? Even if typically you don't have a preference, you might not have the same requirements or needs as the person who you are choosing a destination with, practice sharing your choice, your opinion. Where would you like to eat? What movie would you like to watch? What would you like to do this weekend? What do you actually think about that? Because a lot of times, even in conversation with loud opinions going on, and there are plenty of those in today's world, we spend so much time making space for other people's opinions that we haven't even heard our own for a long time. Going along to get along can become a slippery slope. So, after you practice, you start getting comfortable making choices, tuning in. What do you want? Even if it's a low stakes choice, even if it's not a very strong decision, because really you would be fine with most anywhere for your lunch destination. Start practicing, feeling into how you feel, where you respond, what is true for you. And then whenever you're unsure about whether something is a yes for you, a no, something in between, start bringing these questions to yourself to review. So again, all things become more easy with practice. In the moment, this can be hard to do initially. However, start feeling into, if you're in an exchange and they're waiting for a yes, do you actually want to? Not should you. Do you want to? Do you have the capacity? Even things that are worthwhile can be more than you have the ability to fulfill right now. And how will you feel? How will you judge yourself if you don't show up in the capacity that you believe you should? Don't be shooting on yourself, my friend. So ask honestly, do I have the capacity? What am I afraid will happen if I say no? Are you giving a yes because you are trying to monitor or meter the disappointment that might be coming up, rejection, judgment, any feelings of conflict? And here's a golden ticket. What would I advise someone I love to do? Remember back at the beginning when I talked about it's easier for us to show up, to take a stand, to defend the people that we love. And yet we get in the habit of making accommodations so that other people can stay comfortable. So if you need to make the leap to get comfortable leaning into these healthy boundaries, sometimes the authentic choice today that brings a little bit of discomfort, sometimes standing up for yourself the way that you would a good friend, a beloved person, is going to show you where you deserve to call on more strength and to stand more firmly in your clarity and your conviction. Today, there's a lot of stress. There's a lot of stress in personal relationships. And we keep hoping that tensions will calm, that life will be easier, that solutions will come for these situations. But we can't live our life waiting for things to get easier, for an easier time to start taking a stand and building this muscle of having boundaries that protect our peace of mind, our energy, and our well-being. So rather than getting lost in that stress, not being clear on what you feel because you feel like you have to say, to do, to show up in a certain way, take a step back, recognize where the stressors are coming from, recognize the stress response that you're feeling, and lean into what feels right for you. Boundaries aren't just relationship tools, they're stress management tools. Every time you notice what you really feel, how you respond to something, where your emotions are guiding you, you are strengthening that connection with the inner wisdom that will guide you to what is right for you and away from what doesn't serve you. So honor yourself and your growth. Tune into yourself and say, I'm listening to you, speaking to that inner self. Your needs matter. Your feelings contain information. You don't have to disappear in order to stay connected to other people. Honor that part of yourself, that inner child that worries about maintaining these relationships and keeping people close only if we keep them happy. Remember, the right people are going to stay with you. You already know how to stand up for the people that you love. Maybe the next step isn't learning how to become stronger, learning how to be assertive, having conversations that change people's minds. Maybe all that you need here is learning to include yourself among the people you love enough to protect. If this conversation resonated with you, if something's coming up, if you have more questions you'd like me to answer, reflections you would like to share, comments you would like to share with other listeners and viewers on the podcast, I hope you'll leave these where you're hearing this podcast or watching the video on YouTube. You can always join the conversation in my Facebook group, Live with Less Stress. And anytime you want to connect with me, head on over to the podcast's homepage, happifiedlife.com. There's a contact button there. And I'd love to support you in changing your relationship with stress, in empowering you to feel more capable, more confident, and to know that you are worthy of the space that promotes your well-being, of the self-love that inspires you to defend what is right for you. The world needs your light now more than ever. So keep on shining, my friend, and until next time, take good care of yourself.
Thanks for listening. You'll find all the resources we discussed today online at happifiedlife.com, along with links to subscribe to Happified on your favorite player and a handy search tool so you can search all of our previous episodes. Help us grow by leaving a quick review and share this episode with a friend. Until next time, keep on shining.